going through this stuff for this deep dive, one thing that that really stands out to me is it's all about, the ways that our perceptions and the stories we create shape what we value.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating. I bet you're someone who is fascinated by things like marketing psychology or
interesting,
maybe behavioral economics, or just like the hidden forces that shape the choices we make.
Absolutely. I mean, it really makes you question how much of what we consider real is actually shaped by perception.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you've got some pretty wild examples here. Remember that Penn and Teller stunt where they served hose water in a fancy restaurant?
The water steward bit from their show, bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had diners, raving about the unique mineral profile of water straight from a garden hose, all because of the story they spun around it. One bottle was supposedly filtered through volcanic rock.
Right.
Another infused with the essence of an Amazonian rainforest.
And they even had that agua de culo.
Yeah. They even had
ass water, as they so eloquently put it.
Ass water.
And people are describing
its
robust earthiness and surprisingly refreshing aftertaste.
But it makes you wonder, right?
It's pretty hilarious, but
I mean, can a story?
What do you think? Yeah.
Can a story really change our experience of something as basic?
Basic as water.
Water. I think it might seem like just a silly prank, but it speaks to a much deeper truth, I think, which is that
the stories we tell ourselves and the stories that are told to us have a profound impact on how we value just about everything.
So it's not just about fancy water in a restaurant.
No.
This is about how we understand value.
This is a much broader thing.
That's across the board.
Yeah, like think about the example you sent about India's demonetization.
Yeah.
When the government suddenly decided to declare 86% of the currency invalid.
Yeah.
It threw the country into chaos.
Wow.
It showed how money at its core is really just a shared story we all agree to believe in.
Yeah.
So
when that story changes.
And when the story changes.
You get paper money.
Even paper money.
Intricate designs with those
intricate designs.
And it also becomes.
Just paper.
Just paper.
Right. It just becomes worthless. Just like those old Deutschmarks you mentioned.
Yeah, just like the old Deutschmarks. Yeah. And it's not just about money either.
It's not just about money.
I mean.
Companies spend trillions of dollars every year.
Companies spend trillions of dollars on crafting these elaborate stories around their products through branding and advertising.
Yeah. But does that mean we're being fooled? Or is there...
It makes you wonder, though, right? Are we being fooled?
Yeah, is there something more to it?
But there's something more to it.
Than that.
Yeah.
I mean, if a good story...
Yeah,
Or a good story makes us enjoy something more.
Yeah.
Are we being manipulated?
Or
is it actually worth more to us then?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Yeah,
and that gets at this really interesting concept.
Yeah.
Called the...
the Price-Placebo Effect.
Price-Placebo Effect.
Yeah, where people actually experience things differently.
Okay.
Based on what they believe they paid.
Okay.
There was a study where researchers gave people the same wine, but told some it cost $10.
Okay.
And others it cost $90.
Okay, and I bet the people who thought...
You know what happened.
Yeah, they enjoyed...
They were drinking the expensive wine.
Enjoyed it more.
And
it wasn't just subjective reporting.
Right.
Brain scans showed increased activity in the medial orbitofrontal cortex, a part of the brain, associated with pleasure and reward.
Wow.
When people thought they were drinking the pricier wine.
Physiologically?
Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah.
It really is.
So is it all in our heads?
Yeah, so it really challenges this whole idea of objective value.
So paying more actually makes something.
If our experience is demonstrably better.
Objectively better.
Because of the price tag.
Yeah.
Does that mean the higher price is justified?
Yeah. That's a good question.
It's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
With no easy answer.
Yeah, and the really wild part is this.
And here's the even wilder part.
Yeah.
The Price-Placebo Effect goes beyond just enjoyment.
Okay.
It can actually impact how well we perform on certain tasks.
Okay.
Like there were studies where people who believed they were drinking a more expensive energy drink actually performed better on physical and cognitive tests.
Like that one with the...
Like, you remember that one?
SoBe adrenaline rush?
With the SoBe adrenaline rush, where people paid either $1.89 to $8.29.
Either $1.89 for
the same drink
or $8.29.
The ones who paid more
for the same drink
actually solved puzzles faster.
Yeah.
You know?
And it was the same drink.
It was the same drink.
Yeah.
It suggests that our brains are wired to link price with quality.
So crazy.
And this belief can have tangible effects on our abilities.
So just the belief.
It's as if we unlock a higher level of performance.
We've paid more.
Simply because we believe we've invested more.
Unlock something in us.
Crazy, right?
That's so wild.
That's so wild.
Which brings us to what might be the most mind-blowing example of all.
Okay.
A Toyota Corolla and the Geo Prism.
Toyota Corolla, you remember this?
It's a Geo Prism.
These were essentially the same car built in the same factory.
Wow, really?
Yet they were marketed under different brand names.
Okay.
With the Corolla positioned as
so the Corolla...
a higher-end vehicle with a higher price tag.
Higher end.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's crazy is that Corolla owners consistently reported fewer maintenance issues.
Wow.
And greater overall satisfaction with their cars compared to Prism owners.
So the people who...
Despite the fact that mechanically they were identical.
The Corollas thought that their cars were better.
Yep. The theory is that Corolla owners, having paid more, valued their cars more.
They put more value on.
And were therefore more likely to take good care of them.
Okay.
Leading to fewer problems in the long run.
So they actually took better care of them.
Yeah. So the story we tell ourselves about a product even something as seemingly objective as a car can actually influence its performance and lifespan.
That's so interesting.
It's really wild.
Yeah.
It highlights this incredible power of brands to act as meaning systems.
Okay.
Shaping not just our perception of value, but also our actual behavior and experiences.
Yeah, and that makes me want to dig into the whole concept of branding.
Well, let's do it.
Bit deeper.
Okay, let's talk about branding.
Okay.
I mean, think about it this way. When we strongly identify with a brand, it can become an extension of ourselves.
Okay, right.
We choose brands that reflect our values, our aspirations, our sense of style.
You mentioned a really interesting...
You know, I've got a funny anecdote, actually.
How about the Livestrong brand?
About the Livestrong brand.
What was that about?
Yeah, so for a long time, I was deeply connected to that brand.
Yeah.
It represented hope, resilience, and a commitment to fighting cancer.
Okay.
But then, of course, when the founder, Lance Armstrong, was exposed for doping, it felt like a personal betrayal.
So the story behind the brand?
Yeah, the story behind the brand.
The values it represented turned out to be a lie.
The values that it represented turned out to be a lie.
And
it showed how powerful that emotional connection to a brand
affected you
can be.
Yeah.
You know, when the story crumbles, it can have a profound impact on those who bought into it.
It makes me wonder about the flip side.
It makes you wonder about the flip side.
When a brand...
Yeah, what about when a brand...
genuinely delivers on its promise?
Genuinely delivers on its promise.
Can it actually improve our performance?
Improve our performance.
Yeah.
There's some fascinating research on that.
Okay.
Studies have shown that people perform better when using products with brand names they trust.
Okay.
Even if the products themselves are identical to generic versions.
Like those golfers who did better with Nike clubs.
Like the golfers you mentioned, who did better with those Nike clubs.
Even though the clubs were...
Even though the clubs were no different from the generic ones.
No different from the generic ones.
Right. And in another study, people wearing...
And there was another study.
3M earplugs.
Scored higher on math tests.
Scored higher on math tests.
Even though those earplugs? Even though the earplugs were identical to unbranded ones. Identical to unbranded ones. So it's not just about perception.
Wow, right. So it's not just about perception.
Yeah.
Brand trust can actually translate into tangible results.
Can lead to better results. And it seems that...
And this effect seems to be especially pronounced in novices.
So novices.
Perhaps because they're less confident in their own abilities.
Okay, so novices are...
They rely
more susceptible to this.
on the perceived quality and expertise of a trusted brand.
Brand-boosted performance.
Interesting stuff.
Interesting.
So even if we don't want to admit it, it seems we're all susceptible to this influence of these stories, these brands, these narratives that surround us.
The narratives that surround us.
The fascinating thing is, even when faced with evidence, people often deny the influence of stories and branding on their choices.
Yeah.
It's as if we're reluctant to acknowledge
admit it.
That something as superficial as a story could have such a profound impact on our perceptions and behaviors.
You think we're making
these rational, we want to believe we're completely rational beings.
Yeah.
Making decisions based on pure logic and objective qualities.
Yeah.
But as we've seen,
not like that.
The reality is far more nuanced.
It's not.
Our choices, our experiences, even our abilities are constantly being shaped by the stories we encounter and the stories we tell ourselves.
The stories we tell ourselves.
You know? That's right. Yeah, it's almost like we're wired to be influenced.
In a way, it's like
by narrative.
We're wired for stories,
whether we acknowledge it or not.
Instead of viewing these stories as deceptive or manipulative,
you know, maybe we should recognize the role they play. In how our brains have evolved to make sense of the world.
So embracing the mythos.
The mythos, as the ancient Greeks called it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Think about it in terms of animal signaling. You know? Animals use signals to communicate. Attract mates, avoid conflict.
Right.
These signals aren't always true in a literal sense. But they convey information. That helps animals navigate their environment and make crucial decisions.
So are you saying that stories are like signals?
In a way,
that help us make sense of the world?
Stories provide context, simplify complex information, and help us form bonds and shared understandings.
Ancient Greeks.
The ancient Greeks understood this with their concepts of logos and mythos.
Logos and mythos.
You know, logic and rationality are essential, but they're often enhanced by the power of stories, metaphors, and emotional connections.
This makes me think of that incredible story about Joshua Bell.
Oh, yeah.
The world-renowned violinist?
The world-renowned violinist.
Remember how he played his Stradivarius? In a busy subway station.
Yeah, perfect illustration.
Those people just walked right by.
How context shapes our perception.
Incredible.
Here's this musician capable of moving audiences to tears in a concert hall. But in the setting of a bustling subway, his music was largely ignored.
And it wasn't that people were uncultured.
And it wasn't that people were
uncultured,
didn't appreciate beautiful music.
The story.
It's that the context, the story of subway musician,
just subway musician,
didn't prepare them for the experience of hearing a world-class violinist.
Didn't prepare them to hear.
It goes back to
incredible music.
That Penn and Teller water experiment,
right?
As the setting of a fancy restaurant, elevated the perceived value of plain water,
right?
The context of a concert hall elevates our experience of music.
Right. It's all about It's
not about deception.
Dumb text.
It's about how our brains are wired to interpret information and assign meaning.
This is all so incredibly thought-provoking.
It really is.
I mean, it's fascinating.
The idea that the value that we perceive in things is so malleable.
Yeah, we like to think we're these rational decision makers.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder by these stories. Branding context.
We're constantly being influenced.
Often without even realizing it.
By stories branding context.
I think...
often without even realizing it.
I think that awareness is key.
Yeah.
Once we understand...
It's wild.
How stories shape our perceptions.
It's so wild.
We can start to make more conscious choices.
Yeah.
About the narratives we embrace.
How do we become more aware of that?
So instead of being passive consumers of stories... we could become active curators.
Or where do we even start?
Of the narratives that influence our lives.
Yeah, where do we start?
How do we do that?
Yeah.
I think it begins with acknowledging that we're all susceptible to stories.
Yeah.
It's not a weakness.
Right.
It's part of being human.
We're human. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Then we can start to examine the stories we're buying into.
Okay.
And advertising in the news. Even the stories we tell ourselves. What are the narratives
even question
behind the brands we choose?
Yeah.
The products we buy.
Also story.
The experiences we seek out.
A little more critically.
And maybe even
question those stories a little bit more?
Or are they subtly manipulating us?
Yeah. Are they serving us?
Yeah.
Or are they subtly manipulating us?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like the old saying,
we can ask ourselves,
garbage in, garbage out.
Does this story align with my values? If we feed our minds with...
Does it inspire me?
Negative...
Does it help me achieve my goals?
Or manipulative stories?
And once we're more conscious of the stories at play...
That's what we'll internalize.
We can be more discerning.
And project back out into the world.
About the ones we choose to let influence us.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the...
It even comes...
It's like the old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
If we feed our minds.
If we choose to engage with stories that we're...
With negative or manipulative stories.
Lift us.
That's what we'll internalize.
Challenge us.
And project back out in the world.
And expand our perspectives.
And conversely, if we choose to engage with stories...
That's what will shape our internal narratives.
That uplift us, challenge us.
And ultimately our lives.
And expand our perspectives.
Yeah.
That's what will shape our internal narratives.
It's a good analogy.
And ultimately our lives.
And this all makes me wonder about the ethical implications.
Yeah, this brings up some...
If companies and marketers are using storytelling.
Interesting ethical implications.
Yeah.
If companies and marketers
our choices.
Are using storytelling to influence our choices and behaviors.
Where do we draw the line?
Where do we draw the line?
Yeah. Is there a point where it becomes manipulation?
Is there a point where it becomes manipulation?
Yeah.
I think...
when does it cross that line?
I think transparency is certainly a crucial factor.
Okay.
Consumers should be aware of the techniques being used to persuade them.
Like we should know.
You know, maybe we need to a greater emphasis on the genuine value a product or service provides.
Yeah.
Rather than relying solely on hype.
Right.
And manufactured narratives.
It's like the difference between
authentic storytelling,
the manipulative,
between authentic storytelling and manipulation.
When does it become
exactly? I think consumers are becoming more discerning.
Yeah.
I
think people are getting better at that.
They're seeking out brands
that
have a true purpose.
Yeah.
A story that resonates with their own values.
You'd have a meaning.
You know?
Yeah.
They want more than just a product.
Yeah, and a mission.
They want to feel connected.
Yeah.
To something bigger.
Something bigger.
Something meaningful.
Yeah.
So it's about...
ultimately, it's about using
It's about using the power of stories for good.
Power of stories.
Both for individuals and for society.
Yeah. But that makes me wonder if we're...
Makes you think, though, right?
So wired.
Like, if we're so wired to learn...
Through narratives. Shouldn't we be leveraging that?
Shouldn't we be leveraging
that?
More in education.
Imagine if we
taught history.
Even math through these captivating stories.
Captivating stories.
Instead of
memorizing dry facts and figures. Yeah.
Imagine if students could experience historical events.
Imagine if they could.
Through immersive narratives. Or explore scientific concepts through the stories of the people. Who made those discoveries. Yeah. You know? It could revolutionize the way we learn.
I think there's huge potential there.
Yeah.
I mean, stories have a way...
Making it less about...
Of making information more memorable.
Rote memorization.
More engaging.
Yeah.
And more meaningful.
And more about understanding connection.
Not only that, but...
An inspiration.
Engaging with stories can help students develop critical thinking skills.
That's a good point.
They can learn to analyze narratives, deconstruct them, and question the underlying messages and assumptions.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about passively consuming stories.
It's about being an active participant.
But actively engaging with them.
Yeah.
Questioning them.
Yeah.
And even creating their own...
It's like we're all storytellers.
Right.
In a way.
It's like we're all storytellers in a way.
We're constantly shaping and reshaping our own narratives.
Shaping and reshaping.
And the narratives of the world around us.
Our own narratives.
Yeah.
and the narratives of the world around us.
This makes me think about one final question.
Yeah, that makes me think about...
if stories are so powerful.
One final question as well.
Yeah.
If stories are so powerful.
What about the stories we tell ourselves?
What about the stories we tell ourselves?
The ones that run in the background of our minds.
Shaping our beliefs.
Shaping our beliefs and our self-perception.
But self-perceptions.
Yeah.
That's
So like a limiting belief.
That's a crucial point.
A negative self-perception.
We all have internal narratives.
Can be just as powerful.
Stories about who we are.
Yeah.
What we're capable of.
As a persuasive advertisement.
And what the future holds.
Shaping our choices and actions.
And these stories can be just as influential
in ways we might not even realize
as the ones we encounter in the outside world.
So we can have just as much of an impact.
Right?
Yeah.
So a limiting belief, a negative self-perception, can be just as powerful as a persuasive advertisement.
That's trying to
shaping our choices and actions.
Tell us something.
In ways we might not even realize.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's incredible.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And the good news is we have the power.
So how do we
rewrite those stories?
How do we become aware of these internal narratives?
So how do we do that?
Yeah.
How do we become aware of these internal narratives?
And challenge the ones.
And challenge the ones that are holding us back.
That are holding us back.
Mindfulness.
Yeah. How do we do that?
Is a great starting point.
Yeah.
Paying attention to our thoughts.
Okay.
Noticing those negative or limiting beliefs as they arise.
Okay.
And gently questioning them.
So we notice them.
We can ask ourselves, is this belief really true?
Yeah.
Is it serving me?
And we ask ourselves,
where did this belief come from?
Is this really true?
You know.
Is this serving me?
It's about, it's about becoming a detective of our own minds.
Where did this belief come from?
Looking for those hidden clues and biases.
Like we're a detective of our own minds?
That shape our perceptions.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like being a detective of our own minds, looking for those hidden clues.
Like a detective of our own minds, yeah. Looking for those hidden clues and biases that shape our perception.
That shape our perceptions.
You know?
Yeah.
And once we identify those
limiting beliefs.
We can start to
challenge them.
Challenge them and replace them.
We replace them with more.
With more empowering narratives.
Empowering narratives.
Yeah.
But what about the stories that...
It's not about...
we tell about the world around us.
It's not about denying reality.
But about society as a whole.
Or pretending everything is perfect.
Yeah.
It's about...
those narratives that shape...
It's about choosing to focus on stories.
Our culture.
That support our growth and well-being.
Our politics, our collective understanding of who we are.
Right.
And what we value.
That's a crucial point.
I mean, those narratives have...
The stories we tell about ourselves as a society...
Such a huge impact.
Have a profound impact on how we function.
On how we function.
They shape our policies, our institutions.
They shape our policies, our institutions.
Even our sense of identity.
Your sense of identity.
You know?
Yeah.
Think about the narratives.
Makes you wonder.
Around immigration.
Who gets to tell those stories?
Climate change. Economic inequality.
Whose voices are amplified.
The stories we choose to believe about these issues.
And whose perspectives are left out.
Shape how we approach solutions.
Yeah.
And interact with each other.
I mean, who controls whose narrative?
Makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Who gets to tell those stories?
As stories.
Whose voices are amplified.
They're being told.
And whose perspectives are left out.
And whose stories are being silenced.
Right.
Are we hearing a
diversity of voices?
A diversity of voices and perspective?
And perspective.
Or are we stuck in echo chambers?
Or are we stuck?
Reinforcing the same limited narratives.
In echo chambers reinforcing the same limited narratives.
That's a question worth pondering.
How do we ensure a more
inclusive and representative range of stories?
Range of stories are being told and heard.
Yeah,
how do we break out?
How do we break out of those echo chambers?
And
engage with perspectives that might challenge our own. I think it starts with recognizing that there's no single definitive narrative.
Okay, so there's no one.
Every individual, every community narrative
has a unique story to tell.
Right. There's no one story that
it's about
captures all of it.
It's about embracing that multiplicity of narratives.
Right.
Recognizing the richness
Everyone has their own.
And complexity of human experience.
Seen them each story.
You know?
Yeah. And we need
so instead of trying to fit everyone
recognize all of them
into a single oversimplified story, we need to create spaces.
We need to be more.
Where diverse voices can be heard and understood.
So instead of trying to fit everyone into a single oversimplified story,
think about the impact.
We need to create spaces where
representation in media and the arts.
Diverse voices can be heard and understood.
When we see and hear stories.
Think about the impact of representation.
From a wide range of perspectives.
In media and the arts.
It broadens our understanding of the world.
When we see and hear.
And challenges our preconceived notions.
Stories from a wide range of perspectives.
You know.
It broadens our understanding of the world.
It's like...
and challenges our preconceived notions.
It's like looking through a kaleidoscope.
It's like looking through a kaleidoscope.
Instead of a magnifying glass.
Instead of a magnifying glass.
You see a multifaceted...
vibrant
picture.
Vibrant picture.
Instead of a narrow, distorted view.
Instead of a narrow, distorted view.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It reminds us...
It's a good one.
That the stories we consume and the stories we create,
it really drives the point home,
have the power to shape not just our individual lives, but also the collective narrative of our society.
It's about recognizing.
It's not just about
the incredible power we all have.
It's not just about personal transformation.
To be agents of change.
It's about societal transformation.
Yeah.
You know?
Even in a world.
And ultimately, it's about recognizing
the incredible power
we all have to be agents of change.
A narrative.
Even in a world.
We have the power to step back.
Where we're constantly bombarded.
To think critically.
With information and narrative.
And to choose the stories.
They have the power to step back.
That resonate with us.
To think critically.
That align with our values.
And to choose the stories that resonate with us.
That inspire us.
That align with our values.
To create a better world.
And that inspire us to create a better world.
Yeah, this has been a truly fascinating deep dive.
Fascinating deep dive.
We've covered so much ground. From the psychology of pricing.
To the power of societal narrative. And it all...
points to one...
It points to one crucial takeaway. Stories matter.
Stories matter.
More than we often realize. They shape our perceptions, our choices. Our relationships and ultimately the world we live in. So let's be mindful of the stories we tell ourselves. The stories we choose to believe.
We tell ourselves the stories we choose to believe.
And the stories we share with others.
Let's choose to engage with narratives.
Let's choose to engage with narratives that uplift. Inspire and empower us. And let's
work to create a world.
Where diverse voices. And stories can flourish.
Yeah, stories can flourish.
This has been
an incredible exploration. And I bet you're
walking away.
With a whole new perspective. On how stories shape your world. You know?
Yeah.
I hope so.
And
I encourage you.
To continue exploring this topic. To pay attention to the narratives around you.
This topic to pay attention to.
And to think critically about the stories.
Our narratives around you.
That are shaping your life.
To think critically.
And the lives of those around you.
Hit up the stories that are shaping your life. Yep. And the lives of those around you.
Because in the end.
The
stories we tell will determine the world we create. And on that note.
It's a powerful thought.
We'll wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this fascinating journey.
Thank you for joining us.
And we'll see you next time. For another deep dive.
Whatever
intriguing material you send our way.
Into